get a net increase of 5 billion, which they wouldn't have to do anything but to do with VAT.
All right, we've only got about 3 or 4 minutes left with you. Other points, I've been asking the questions in your forecast coming up, again, here in the United States, other parts of the world. You called what happened in Central Asia with precision, the Russia heat wave with precision. Give us a brief, because I know you're still compiling for the next year, but your brief long-term forecast in hot spots around the world or the United States.
Well, we haven't gone into a lot of detail yet, and we will do a lot more detail for the United States of America. But right now, we can certainly say that Europe, Western Europe, and Britain is going to have a lousy spring and a wet summer. In America, it's very likely that parts of America will be like that. But we do have to be careful and understand how the jet stream is going to affect things, because last year, for example, we last winter we had very mild on the Pacific coast when it was cold elsewhere. So we have to see where the distinctions are going to be. But
just interrupt you, sir.
More extremes.
Just interrupt, as you're using, English nomenclature. Quantify for us, what does a lousy spring, or what do those terms mean? Lousy
means cold and wet. So in terms of farming, it means that the sprouting of crops will be late. So it's bad for agriculture and bad for the economy.
Okay, continue now with what you were saying for the summer.
Yes. Well, in Britain, it will be generally wet or very wet, and there will be probably also a lot of extreme type wet events in America, but we don't know where as yet, and we will have to work that out and let people know.
How did you predict the Pakistan flooding? How did you predict the Russian record heat wave?
Right. Well, our look-back maps as to when there were similar weather, solar, magnetic, lunar forcing in the past showed us that there was going to be high-pressure blocking in East Europe and Russia, which would give a hot south wind and cause that, and that occurred again and again and again in the weather map, so we knew it would be a heat wave. In terms of Pakistan, we didn't have any maps of Pakistan, so we didn't have any prediction that what would occur did occur. But when we saw what was happening for Russia, we could also see when it was going to end, and we could also see that meant that the super deluges in Pakistan would end at the same time, because the whole pattern around the world was going to change. So we predicted to the day when there would be the end of the Russian heat wave and a final gasp of storms, which would then completely peter out in Pakistan and end the super deluges there. And those happened to the day.
But you're saying a general cooling trend in the next few years, or an accelerated one?
Yes, an accelerated one, I would say. Just on that Russian thing, it was very interesting. You could plot on the sun what actually happened. There was a double sunspot coronal explosion, and 12 hours after that, you had massive thunderstorms in St. Petersburg, and then later in Moscow, and the situation also changed in Pakistan. And in terms of what's happening in general over the next few years, yes, we think there will be accelerated cooling, and if you like, this year is the beginning of quite rapid decline of world temperatures.
Well, Mr. Corbyn, meteorologist, astrophysicist, you've been very gracious with your valuable time. Folks can go to your site, they can contribute or sign up and get your detailed forecast, or get a lot of great, invaluable general information all over. In closing, because when you were on last year, you explained to people that, and I'm putting in my words, but I want you to close in your own.
Yep.
And tell me if I'm incorrect repeating it, but I think it's some of the most important things you describe. The fanciest computers, the best systems, can't integrate all the different magnetic fields of the Earth, the moon relationship, the sun. All we can do is look back at past events not so much modeling, but then being able to predict what happened because of where the positions were. That makes total sense. That's what you're doing. That's why you're so accurate. And that's completely different from pinhead so-called scientists trying to fit the science and their limited technological meters to how they believe things work.
Yes, absolutely right. The current approach of what calls itself climate science is arrogant beyond belief. They imagine that their machines know more about nature than nature does itself. Nature is its own computer, and in fact we could never construct anything advanced enough to compute everything that happens in the sun, between the sun and the earth to give the details of what happens. But we can look at the past as to when very similar things were driving, and that is how we make our predictions. We try to understand nature instead of assuming we are understanding it and able to control it, which we cannot.
Well, I remember reading Farmer's Almanac when I was a kid, and
yes.
You know, they said it was all about the moon. I mean, they didn't know why. They just knew there was a relationship.
Well, that's absolutely right. I mean, it's obviously, well, not obviously, but it isn't just the tidal matter, which happens every fortnight, but it's also the whole cycle of the moon, indeed the whole cycle of eclipses, which is a 19-year cycle, and there's many sub-cycles within that, you see, of the moon crossing the plane of the ecliptic, as well as new and full moons, and all the relative timings between that and events, those things, and events on the sun, which are crucial.
Well, your accuracy rate is the proof that you are a true scientist and a real treasure. Thank you for spending time with us.
Thank you very much. It's great to be with you.
All right, there goes Piers Corbyn, weatheraction.com. Have a great New Year, sir. Well, that was amazing, ladies and gentlemen, and 85% accuracy rate a year out. I mean, it's just incredible because he's a real scientist and knows the sun and the moon are affecting much of what happens on Earth. Then the Earth's own magnetic field affects that. And people breathing, trees respirating, cows passing gas, that is such a tiny effect overall. But they want to demonize normal carbon cycle so they can control it, while engaging in legions of true dangerous events, detonating nukes in the upper atmosphere, using DU, open-air cross-species genetic engineering, things that in the whole history of this planet have never been done, and proving that it's causing dangerous mutations and problems, and huge super colliders colliding heavy particles together. I mean, all extremely dangerous. And they tell us all of that's not dangerous, but carbon dioxide is just this devil gas. It's going to kill us all. They know it's a fraud. It is a giant, sickening, huge joke to them. And they love it. I will assure you that sun is the main driver. You go out there on a July day, on a clear day, it'll burn your skin. It's what makes the plants grow. It's what heats the earth. The earth would be so far below zero it makes your head spin. It'd be an absolute zero without the sun. And the UN says the sun doesn't affect our climate. Ladies and gentlemen, are we that stupid to buy that ridiculous lie? Final segment straight ahead, and then unbelievable retransmission.
This is the end.
If you missed the second hour of the broadcast, I got into the unbelievable open announcements that they're going to turn the cities into prison cities to control our every move and literally call us prisoners and ration everything we do. We've also got new reports out by Watson, Maryland staged terror plot, FBI caught provocateuring patsies. We're trying to make that a big search term, Maryland staged terror, those three words, and also prison cities today. In fact, let's check Google Trends. And we did that in the first hour. It should be becoming the #1 trend in the next 30 minutes or so, if it is going to become the #1 trend. Well, I think we've only failed a few times and had it, in the top 5 or so. But I would imagine the listeners come through big time against the enemy. So we'll check Google Trends right now. I got a few other news items I want to hit. But first, talking about the sun, that thing that doesn't affect our climate according to the United Nations, because they say so. That's like saying water isn't wet. I mean, it's just such a ridiculous lie on the face of it, and they know full well. My solar backup. Have you lost your power? Want to simply flip the switch on to get the lights back on? If so, you should check out mysolarbackup.com, because there's never been a better time to start getting off the grid and to generate your own supply of electrical power. I myself am moving out to the countryside and going solar and rainwater and all that. I'm done. I can't leave the country, so I'm going to do the next best thing. Go to mysolarbackup.com. They got a great unit, and you can buy a bunch of them and run your whole house. mysolarbackup.com, 877-327-0365. The government doesn't own the sun yet, folks, so mysolarbackup.com, 877-327-0365. A lot of other news I didn't get to, and for some reason, it's like it's impossible to get to this, because I covered the eugenics today, and I meant to then integrate it in with the surveillance city that they're creating. Each city to be a total panopticon, but the spy satellites for global warming are really spy satellites to track your heat resonance, that they get your body heat resonance biometric code, then they track you by satellite. That's now mainstream news. Detroit Public Schools getting 40,000 laptop stimulus funds. The federal government will watch the kids over those, just like Pennsylvania. Computers that see you and keep watch over you. I've been talking about this since Monday. Never got to it. It's such an incredible article. It says everything you do will be watched in live time for your own good. I mean, they just announced total 1984. It says here that prisoners would be watched, but also doctors and nurses making sure they wash their hands. Guilty until proven innocent. Again, it says computer vision systems can watch hospital room and remind doctors to nurses to wash their hands, or warn of restless patients. Oh, they say you didn't take care of your baby right, they'll take your kid. That's already going in England. Who are in danger of falling out of bed. It can go through a computer-equipped system. And the computer decides and then alerts people. And then that's actually in the news today. DARPA claims they're just now rolling this out. Utah's $1.5 billion cybersecurity center underway. They already built one in San Antonio. Court OK searches of cell phones without warrant. They're just openly announcing they're spying on everything. That's San Francisco Chronicle. What's traitorware? All these new iPhone apps and other droid apps that spy on you and everybody else. Tattletale apps. U.S. tells agencies watch insiders to prevent new WikiLeaks. And it's saying anybody who doesn't act happy or enthusiastic may be a traitor. So it's just, again, the panopticon of total spying to ensure the criminality of the government and corporations continues. See, telling the truth is becoming a crime, or exposing crime is becoming a crime. I'm out of time on that, but I'm going to go back into this more tomorrow, as promised. More very informative guests tomorrow. Excellent job in the 4-hour transmission today by the great crew, Marley, Jaron, Bill, Matt, everybody. Absolutely. Who else? Oh, yes. And Filberto as well. So everybody has done a super job today. Another strike against tyranny. Another emergency transmission to wake folks up. Now, coming up, the retransmission at Infowars.com, the stations that re-air it, I'm breaking down the incredible eugenics announcements that are off the charts insane and confirm our worst fears. See you back live tomorrow, 11 a.m. Central.